Well, we're back from the break, and you guys missed the discussion that Craig and I were having during the break. Of course, you weren't be privy to that about the politics, which I know I sounded off last time about that. But anyway, I got my sign in my yard that says the Reiner family for Trump and Pence. So it sits in my yard. I didn't want to put it too close to the road because I was afraid somebody would
jump out and grab
steal it. And then I called my stepfather and I said, I'll probably get a few eggs at my house. And he said, well, don't you think it's worth it? And I said, yeah, I guess it's true. So anyway, I should bring that and probably put it right up there behind me on the screen. So, but I don't think anybody doubts my my political association. In my office, when you go by my door, it says extremely right wing, and you know,
extreme vetting in your office.
Well, extremely right wing. So, and I've had this discussion with other people, which is the Bill of Rights, and that, you know, one of the things that I think they're doing to our youth, which I'm really scared about, and someone made perfect sense, Gary Miller actually said it, was that, you know, teaching these constitutional classes on learning what is in our Constitution and what our Bill of Rights are, understanding that if you don't understand that, then you never know what was taken from you. Mm-hmm. If you don't know what you have, then how can you possibly miss it if they take it away? And the other statement is true, which is that a government big enough to give you everything you want is big enough to take away everything you love. So, you know, this is the problem we've done. We've become this society that's dependent upon someone else's manufacturing, and it all goes back to the petrodollar, and it all goes back to Nixon, Tricky Dicky, who sold us out, took us off the gold standard, and basically told the oil-producing, exporting countries that we would protect them with our military if they agreed to sell their oil in dollars. So that meant China, if they wanted dollars, had to purchase goods and sell them in the U.S., okay, so that they could get dollars to buy oil. And so that's why everybody buys our debt. Now they're so hooked on the dollar, they can't afford not to buy it, because if they do, they have mass chaos in their country because the U.S. falls. If the U.S. falls, every world economy falls. Mm-hmm. And they're trying to branch away from that, but that's why it's so hard to figure out this whole chain. It's the addiction. It's the money addiction is insane. But anyway, we're not a political show. We're going to get back to the medical side of it. So the other thing that I promote around, and I don't have any scientific data, but black elderberry or sambucol, you know, is very good to help you with your immune system. And you can buy that just about anywhere in the drugstore. And the other thing that has been useful, vitamin C is very useful. And vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin. Mm-hmm. So you cannot overdose on vitamin C, but you can overdose on vitamin A, D, and E, and K. So those are fat-soluble vitamins. So if you've got a fat-soluble vitamin, they will build up in your system, and you can become toxic on it.
Although it's interesting to me what's happened with vitamin D. I know when going to school, you know, I think it was 40 international units is what they suggested daily, and now where's it at? 2,000, 3,000.
Yeah, it depends on what you absorb, but I can tell you that I've seen, you know, the values are low as anything less than 30. But if your doctor tells you your vitamin D levels at 28 or 22, it's not horrible. If you get below 10, you are at risk of developing diseases related to that. And vitamin D in high doses is also an anti-inflammatory. So, you know, if you don't take vitamin D regularly, there's probably, if your body is aching and you're having some discomfort, especially with a cold or flu or something, taking 10,000 or 12,000 units, or even as much as 50,000 units of vitamin D, I would never suggest you take more than that, is a potent anti-inflammatory.
Or get out in the sun.
Yeah, well, they say you have 15 minutes of sun on your arms and your legs without sunscreen. Okay, and welcome back, Ray.
Yes, I was Somebody read part of an article in Friday's paper to me about questions 1 and 2. It's going to be on the ballot in November. Question 1 is about gun rights. They want to tighten up things, and they asked for the comment of Sheriff Worley and District Attorney Angela Bello on both of these questions. And both the sheriff and the DA said, as far as the gun rights, that they're going to, it should be not to infringe anymore, to vote no on that. But then when it came to the second one, the sheriff just said, well, whatever the people decide. But what was disturbing was the district attorney said, even, what I say is they use the term recreational use on marijuana. And I use the word decriminalization because I'm in court every day and I see people sent away to prison for taking a hit off a joint. So what does the DA say in the paper? She says, well, my staff will get, if it passes, my staff will have less work to do and everything else, but there's so many other ways we can get them onto marijuana. And this is upsetting because it helps so many people. And they're already planning on, if it passes, and she said she's against it passing, that's the district attorney, that if it passes, they may not be able to get you on the use of it or the mere possession of it, but things like you're going to be driving. They're going to get you on the DUI. They're going to get you, say you smoked a joint in the house and there's kids someplace in the house. They're going to get you child neglect, child abuse. It seems like they're always out to get us no matter what. Even when you find something that helps people, that medically may actually save people's lives. And to see the establishment all prepared to come and get us if it passes. And I wanted to point that out, and I want to see what your feelings are on that. And I don't usually call in this early twice, but it was on my mind. I said, I got to tell them before I forget about it or whatever. So give me your comment, and I'll be listening, and let's hope some other people call so I don't tie up the whole hour.
I know, that's okay.
That's interesting because we were talking about marijuana and the fact that one of the reasons that I feel that the government has kept it illegal is because they can't completely control it. Everybody can grow a plant of their own. And then you got the pharmacy, you got the pharmacy.
Yeah, you
companies.
had some interesting numbers. I mean, the OxyContin, a $2-point-something billion industry.
$2.4 billion a year industry.
Yeah.
The pharmaceutical companies spend in a ratio of 8 to 1 more money than the National Rifle Association does lobbying. Something like 14,000 lobbyists in D.C. that lobbies for the pharmacy companies. You'd be surprised how much weight the pharmacy companies.
Yeah, but they don't
carry.
talk about that. They only
No,
talk about
they don't
gun
want
rights,
they don't want you to know that.
And I look at Colorado as an experiment. I mean, they passed the legalization of marijuana, but then they passed some really stringent anti-gun legislation too. And I laughed and I called my brother, who's a doctor in Colorado, and I said, so I see what they did. They passed marijuana so that everybody would get stoned and wouldn't give a shit that they took away a lot of their gun rights. And so, I mean, we're in an era where I agree with you, Ray, that the decriminalization of the marijuana is something that should go forward. Although, on the other hand, Colorado suffered a huge amount of unintended consequences as a result of legalization of marijuana, and they don't talk about that. All you hear about is the revenue stream that the state created. As far as legalizing marijuana, but at the end, and some other states have fallen into that. I think it should be one of those things that's just left alone, and that if somebody has an accident, alcohol is a great example. I mean, marijuana is a little difficult because someone can basically use it and not really be detected for it, but there is no. I mean, here's the dichotomy, and I don't mean to branch out. There is no illegal limit for Xanax in the blood, okay? That means if you get pulled over and you're high on Xanax, they'll test your blood. I mean, they have posted limits, but there's no DUI. All they can do is cite you for is reckless driving, okay? So reckless driving is different than driving under the influence, okay? There is no illegal limit for opioids. Same thing. you get pulled over and the opioids are high in your system, you cannot be cited for DUI because they can't tell you that you went over a certain limit. How they establish this, what I call draconian limit of 10 nanograms in your urine, is insane. Okay, and if we're going to do anything, that's the law that needs to be changed, because 10 nanograms can show up for a week or more, a month or more in your urine after you have smoked marijuana, and depending on the type of marijuana you smoke, then it might even, but marijuana has the resin, the actual THC resin has a very long half-life in your system, and so it can be leached out for a very long time. 300 nanograms is the level that's used to detect people that have used recently. Okay, and a lot of things have to be considered as far as revolving around marijuana. But there were a lot more accidents in Colorado. There were a lot more people that had problems as a result of driving under the influence, but you don't hear about that. So it's not all good. I think that the DA has no choice but to take the will of the public, because she's hired by the public, and with the idea to maintain public safety. So if someone is driving under the influence, they need to get those people off the street, because they could kill you or me. And you know how it is with the driver who's under the influence. They seem to walk away from the accident while the other person is the one that suffers all the consequences. So I think, we talk about drinking responsibly. I educate patients when I give them a marijuana card what they're up against. You are up against a law that is not necessarily in your favor. And, maybe even thinking about getting your cars out of your name, because I couldn't put it past the police to run your license plate, track it to your driver's license, and see that you're a marijuana user. You forget to turn signal left when you're turning left. They use that as a reason to pull you over. Okay, and then they know that you're a marijuana user, and then they pull you in for probable cause and test your urine, and then now you're driving under the influence. That's the setup, and I don't know that it's intentional, but that should be the idea behind it, because that same 10 nanogram level is going to exist whether it's medical or whether it is recreational. And with that thought, we got to go on break, and we'll come back in a few minutes. Thank you for tuning in.